Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm the founder of FemPeak, a Web3 education platform where we prepare you to participate in the ownership economy and the next generation of the internet. We are led by women and inclusive to everyone ready to shape the new emerging world order driven by technology. Although we have recently shifted so much of our focus to Web3, we continue to cover other important topics around self-empowerment, career development, and entrepreneurship. My guest at today's podcast is Adam Levy, a former professional poker player turned NFT collector who has gained some serious success in this area. Adam shares with us his thoughts on why so many poker players have been so early to the NFT space, many of whom with notable amounts of success. We discuss personality traits of NFT adopters and some nuances about the NFT space. It was a great conversation, and I think many of you listening will have a few light bulb moments like I did. Here's my conversation with Adam Levy. All right, so you started in poker. It seems like I'm seeing a pattern here, like Zeneca 33, you probably know him as well, right? So he's also started in in poker. So I'm seeing a pattern. Quite a lot of people are converting from poker to NFTs. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's kind of like the perfect mixture of like it's kind of like adult poker tournaments, I guess, to some extent. Like, like as a kid, you're like, this like poker tournaments are so much fun. You love the randomness of it. I like the competitiveness of it, the fact that like there was glory at the end, whereas like some other people are kind of different personalities. They're fine with the just cash games where you just play day one, day two, like you just play day in, day out. There's no like winning or anything. There's no like tournament winning. There's no end. Sorry, that's what I mean. Like tournaments, you're like everyone starts with the same amount. It's all fair. And then 5 days later or something, like there's someone who's victorious. And I just have always loved tournaments. And yeah, granted, like NFTs aren't really a tournament, but like I love the randomness of tournaments. The fact that we all start with the same amount and then someone eventually figures out a way to get all the chips. Whereas like it's kind of, there's a lot of randomness in NFTs as well. And a lot of I mean, maybe that's specifically for me. Like I've always been fired up by like just tournaments and the idea of like someone coming out victorious. But there's a lot of incomplete information for the broader, why there's a lot of poker players in there. There's a lot of incomplete information that you have to figure out on the fly, which is very much like a hand of poker. So like, for instance, let's say that, let's just go like Bored Apes back in the day. Like, back in the day, as in not even a year ago. That's just crazy. But there like that first weekend, there were multiple times where I had to, like, let's say I had like 5 Ethereum that I could play around with. I had to like figure out like, A, you're kind of like managing like your money a little bit, kind of like in poker, like bankroll. And then B, like you're staring at something that you know a bit about, but not all of it about. Like you don't know who the
and how much was it at that time?
I mean, maybe it was like, the expensive ones that weekend, I ended up buying one for 3 ETH. And that one's like, I don't know, 250 now or something. I don't have that anymore, but
did you sell it?
Yeah, I sold it for 5 ETH. I mean, well, I mean, like there's also honestly, we could probably have the entire podcast on why there's so many similarities between poker and NFTs. Because yet again, when you like buying an NFT is kind of like a hand of poker, where once you buy it, you don't really like, well, maybe in poker, it's a little more immediate, whether you made a mistake or not, but it's not always immediate. Whereas like, actually, yeah, they're both similar. Cause like NFTs, you're like, you might get some information right away being like, oh wow, this is such a great buy, but you might not see the change in price for a long time. So you have to inherently know that it's a good buy or a bad buy on the spot, but you can't 100% know that.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of happens with poker, where sometimes you'll just win a hand and you'll be like, oh, I played that so well or whatever. But really, like, you just got lucky. And, you might not find that out for months until like all of a sudden you start losing. So it is hard to decipher in the spot, but ultimately, I know I'm kind of all over the place because it's not a simple answer for why poker players are good. There's so many reasons. Like for me, like if I make a mistake on an NFT, that's like a lesson learned. And the same thing would happen with poker. Was if I made a mistake, like, or even if I didn't make a mistake, I would at least replay the hand to make sure like what I did was right or wrong.
Yeah.
And you kind of do that with NFTs. Like when I'm like thinking of buying, like going back to that analogy, when I was thinking of buying like this Bored Ape for 3 Ethereum that weekend, like granted, I wouldn't advise that as far as like bankroll is concerned or anything, but it's so daunting that it's really only 2 clicks. All you're doing is clicking like buy now and then confirm on like, your wallet. And then it's in there. It's on, it's out there on the blockchain as long as the gas is high enough. But it still takes a lot when you're just staring at it and being like, am I really going to spend $10,000 on this silly picture? And you have to kind of go through this, like, it's really an emotional experience.
It is. Yeah. I remember like buying the World of Women Galaxy, but like when I didn't get on the mint. So I bought on the secondary, but same day. And on that same day, it was actually, the price has fallen now since then. So I actually got it for like a higher price than what it is.
Yeah.
I do believe that it will probably go back up. I think it would do well. It's still, that project is really interesting and I think it will do well. And it's not just about the price. I felt like I just wanted to be part of that community, and be part of the, although, I'm yet to fully understand how their community works because I went to their Discord and it seems like the Discord is not necessarily closed. And so I'm not entirely sure what I got for, my, the NFT that I bought, but, they've generated such an interesting brand already. And I think that, they're obviously being probably the first, female-led kind of big NFT project like that. So look, it was like I got it for 1.6 ETH, and I'm running a startup, and I pay my our own contract, like our NFT developer, I pay them in ETH. I had to pay 2 ETH to get everything onto the onto the blockchain.
Yeah.
So it's like ETH really matters to me, right? Like I don't have like endless amount of ETH to keep paying for these things. But it was like like exactly what you say, like you're looking at that price and you think, okay, this is like 1.6 ETH. Okay, this is like nearly $6,000. Like, do I really want to do this? And it's an emotional decision, definitely.
Yeah. And what's crazy is like, to go a little more extreme, like there's some, I think the biggest buy I made was 20 ETH, but there's some people that have like, spent like that amount, or they've spent equivalent of a house on an NFT.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like you might spend like months trying to find a house, go meeting all these different people, a lot of man hours just looking around, going wherever or whatever, like, oh, let's check out this house. Let's check out this one. You have to pay the realtor, whatever. And then you just decide you want to buy this gold ape and it's $1 million and it's 2 clicks.
Yeah. So what's the total that you have spent on NFTs and how much is that collection worth now? If you don't mind sharing, I
have no idea. I don't know. I'd say that I've spent a lot and it's worth a lot more. What?
Roughly.
Like, I mean, I'd say like, I don't know, probably spent like, I really have no idea.
Because if the most expensive one that you bought was 20 ETH, and like you got a collection. So let's say maybe you spent about 50 to 100 ETH, and now that's probably worth like 500-600 ETH, if not more, right? Like because some of them will, or maybe even 1,000 ETH. So it's still like depending on because some of them will have gone up massively and some of them will have gone up a little bit. But on the whole, you have won, right?
Yeah.
On the whole.
I mean, I'd say like that's probably about where it is. But the funny thing is that it's possible that there's more losers than winners.
You think so?
But like,
yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if definitely that would be the case. I think that the losers, if you are early enough, because this space is so young, like around the world, like there's only about 1 million people who are in the NFT game,
yeah.
and like there are only 300 million people in the whole of crypto in general. So it's a very, very early space. So I think it's almost hard to lose money right now, because pretty much a lot of these things, that as long as there's like a real team behind it and they're building, etc.
Yeah. Let me like rephrase that a little bit. Like, I'm definitely being a little hard on myself, but there's a lot of projects that are just like either break even or slightly above, like slightly in profit, or losers. There's a lot of that. And then there's very few that are like just cream of the crop blue chips, but those blue chips will outweigh any of, like, let's say you like look at Bored Ape or even like CloneX or something. Like I got a CloneX at 2 ETH and now the floor is like 18, and I've been given like 10 ETH worth of airdrops or 8 ETH worth.
That's
of
another thing, right? Like, yeah.
So it's like I literally probably, that one CloneX is probably paying for like, it could be up to 100 of bad NFTs or something, like that I've spent on. So it's like, really, if you can find like the winner and hone in on that, like, honestly, I think the people that probably do the best are the ones with the most money, who just are like, I'm just buying like 20 or 30 NFTs, but like, and they're just like the best. But I never really got in, like, obviously it's nice to make money, and that can be a little addicting for sure, because all of a sudden you're just like, you want to do more, make more. But I'm kind of like in it for a lot of like, just, there's a lot of other ancillary things I've gotten from just having NFTs, like access. Like,
that's the most interesting part to me. Like, for example, I just signed up for a raffle for Moonbirds. It's because I want access to the community, right? It's not necessarily because I want the picture of a moonbird, like, exactly. or even just the money, whatever, but it's like the project, their CEO is Kevin Rose. I want him on my podcast. I want him to, see what we are doing. I want to get access to that community. Like, I think that you get, you build a kind of camaraderie with the people that are in that space. It's like a exclusive club, right? And you want to get in with the people who are in that club. So even with FemPeak, for example, I think our early members, people who are our premium members, we are giving them so much attention and so much work. We've got, I give them so much access to me, from, and I'm working 15 hours a day, like, but I make time. Like, people email me, I respond to them. I sit there but till 1 a.m. respond to them, because I really want to build that really strong relationship with them. So tell me a little bit about, you talked a little bit about the personality type of people who are in things like, poker, and that's part of the reason why you think that they're getting in. But this is paying for them really handsomely, because they've been quite early to this space. They've been able to, gain access into these communities, gain access to those airdrops, etc. So what is about that personality? I think, because whatever that trait is, I feel like that's a good trait to teach, because it seems like something that's like really useful for being an early adopter. Would you say that an element of that is also patience, that you kind of need to be patient to kind of learn to, you see, for example, I had somebody who wanted to get on our whitelist, and he found it so difficult. Like, he was like, I've already signed up for this thing. And like now you are asking me to create a MetaMask. What is a MetaMask? You know what I mean? Like, what is that thing that gives you the patience to kind of sit?
Well, I think there is like patience. I don't know if specifically for that, but I would say that patience is important in like with like terms of buying something and then understanding it's probably not going to go up right away, and you need to just be okay with like, it's like patience in terms of money. Like in poker, you're not always going to see the returns right away, but if you're good and you're better than people are, you're eventually going to make some money. It's the same thing here, where you have to wait for the community to kind of, or the team to build and stuff. But for what I think, kind of like going back to what you're like, that person who kind of, that person didn't really have much patience. I think it's not all completely that. It's also like, it's like someone's learned to like enough already. Like what I've discovered is there are some great and very talented people in many different worlds who just do not have the time or bandwidth to like learn or know where to learn about this stuff. And then once they learn about something that seems so, like I went through this in 2016 when I got into crypto. Like we all went through it. You went through it. And you're like,
I got in since 2018, started really learning about it.
And it probably took you a bit to understand what the heck a MetaMask was, or, what are these stupid numbers and letters and stuff. But like, I think because of poker kind of having that technical background already, where you're like looking through numbers and stats and trying to be like, oh, this guy's like raising 24% of the time or something. And then you're trying to want to counteract that. It kind of made me a little more, and also just being on the internet for so long, kind of just made me a little more welcoming to stuff like this. Maybe not necessarily adept, but I was like a little more open and like ready to like understand kind of it. But still took me a bit. Like, I don't know why, because looking back, it's so simple. Like it's just numbers and letters that just denote like where your address is. But like now I'm like, or back then I was like, this is so technical, it's like off-putting almost. Like it was so hard for me to understand what I was doing. I don't know, like, what is this supposed to even mean? But eventually you just get used to it. And then I'm an early adopter, and I tell my poker buds about it eventually. And they're kind of like the people who it's funny because there's different groups of people in poker. It's like early adopters like me. And then there's people who are like very stubborn about it. But eventually like they're like they're able to discern that this isn't going away. Like this trend isn't going away. Like I like get in on stuff early, and just eventually I can kind of decide for myself. But like some people are just really smart, but very tied in their ways. But eventually other smart people that they just can't avoid these stupid NFTs or Ethereum or whatever, that they're just like, okay, I will admit that I was wrong. And being able to admit you're wrong in poker is, well, if you can't admit you're wrong in poker, it's really going to be tough for you to win. Because sometimes you just need to accept that maybe someone else played better than you. And that's kind of like a really good trait to possess.
Yeah, definitely. So why is it, do you think, that when people get into NFTs, they can't stop talking about it? Because I definitely feel the same way. Like it's a very, very interesting topic to talk about. Like and you don't get that until you buy like your first few NFTs. But once you do, then like you really, like, it's so addictive.
I would say like it's so important to the world, to be honest. Like so yeah, sure. Like, hey, making money. People love, like when crypto was doing well in 2018 or whatever, like you couldn't get away from it either, because it's making what makes money kind of like gets people clicking, and then the clicks kind of drive like the action and stuff of the algorithm. So it's kind of unavoidable. But ultimately, I just think that NFTs are so much bigger than anyone really I think very few people truly understand how massive NFTs are.
Mm.
Like the fact that it's gonna, I like early on, we'll say like February of last year, I just kept calling it a multi-industry disruptor, as in
Yes, it is.
art, music, ticketing, gaming. And now I'm discovering like even like
Marketing,
work,
HR even. Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
like records and stuff.
Mhm.
You know, like, and the amount of efficiency that NFTs are going to create for the world, and like less fraudsters that will like be able to just copy a painting or something or whatever it is, or the fact that like now record labels are kind of in like a tough spot where they kind of have to offer more to their artists, or else they're just going to create their own NFTs. Like
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg has records and stuff now on that are NFTs.
Yeah. 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 Like nobody is gonna. That's absolutely true. You know, and the way I see NFTs as similar to digital marketing. Like, you know how we had to all learn about digital marketing. Now we have to learn about not just NFTs, but tokenization. Not necessarily just NFTs, but like tokens, token
Yeah.
economy, right? Because for me, NFTs is like, obviously they are one type of token, and then of course, you know, then you have the cases like similar to Bored Apes, you know, then they had their fungible tokens. So I think everybody is going to need to learn about token economy the same way that we all had to learn about digital transformation or digital marketing and like digital everything. I think that's how big this is.
Yeah. I mean, like it's also that's like kind of, it's funny because we all got in NFTs for the tech, like the people last year were all getting, let's say like early part of the year, we're getting it for the technology. But like in turn, like Bored Ape kind of made it very prevalent that community is very important.
Yes.
Possibly more, that's actually like another attribute of what NFTs do, because
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
creating a community through your own collection, you know, and people
Yeah.
feel stuff emotional towards it.
Yeah, definitely, because you're giving people something that very, very different to the old model of advertising and marketing, etc. Because you're giving something to people that, as your community grows, the value of that thing could go up, right? Like it's a way of giving back to the community even before the community hasn't necessarily, shown their loyalty in a way. It's kind of like who was it? It was a US president, I think, who said, don't say what your country has done for you, what have you done for your country. Like
Yeah, I forget.
yeah. So like in a similar kind of way, it's kind of like, you're doing something for your community, just for being part of it. And then I really like the definition of aligning incentives. That is like NFTs and tokens in general are a way of aligning incentives between different stakeholders. So if the stakeholders are, the community and the creators, then this in this case, then the tokens are a way to align incentives between them, so that they have a reason, to go in and talk about your community, right? So that's very powerful. The other thing that that I kind of like didn't click for me at first, and now I'm kind of like really seeing the value, is that sometimes people compare, and I have talked about this repeatedly on our platform in terms of comparing, let's say, holding ETH as opposed to using your ETH to buy NFTs. There are pros and cons, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. So one thing is, okay, when you hold your ETH, your 10 ETH is going to stay 10 ETH. It's not going to become 20 ETH, right?
Yeah.
Like the dollar value of ETH may go up, but you still only have 10 ETH, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, or whether it's Solana, ETH, whatever it is, right? But the value of that is staying in that currency, or in that token. Whereas when you buy NFTs with it, then if you buy the right NFTs at the right time, then all of a sudden, instead of 5 ETH, you have maybe 20 ETH, right? And that's a really big difference. So it's like, it's not just like you're buying that and like sitting there, it's sitting there waiting. So, but the downside is that NFTs are not as liquid. So what are your thoughts on balancing these? I suppose if you have the right NFT, probably it will be liquid, I guess. Like maybe like if you have a doodle and you decide to sell your doodle, put it on the at the floor price, how likely it is that it will definitely sell. Probably if you look at the activity, you'll see that in the past hour, this many people have been buying and selling it. So probably it's relatively liquid, but maybe not quite the same as like if you had your Bored Ape that's now worth 250 ETH, do you think like if you put it on the market, it would go right away?
I mean, I think if I list it, maybe not that one, because it's actually very nuanced, kind of how everything works. Because like that one happened to be a 4-trait like robot, so it's rare. And rare ones, like you basically like, if I listed it at floor, yeah, it would go within a minute, but I'd kind of be losing a lot of value. Also, part of the issue is that if I want to get the value that I think it's worth, like 250, I may have to wait a long time to get that sold.
I was going to say, it's a little bit like selling a house, right? Like almost the process. Like, let's say if you have a mansion, you're probably going to have to wait for a while to find the right buyer.
Yeah, you are. But also, eventually, you may just like strike gold and someone like will randomly just want to buy it. It does happen here and there. But I noticed this, we'll say in August, or maybe it was like a little later. I think it was like September, basically after Mutants came out. It was literally like, I remember saying to myself, I should just take this month off of September, come back in October. And like, instead I just sat around and like bought stuff. And that was like kind of like when like there was no real, like the liquidity, it was a lot smaller. So we were all just kind of like buying from each other and then like flipping on each other. And it was like, some people were making money, but also like, I bought the top of some like art block stuff and this and that. But when the liquidity isn't there, it is barren. So it is vitally important and yes, people may be, so man, it's like, it's vitally important to take profits. And you're going to feel weird when you sell that and it keeps going up. Like for a little bit, like the way that, so with tokens, like with Ethereum, if I'm like, all right, I'm going to get rid of it right now, like cool, like instantly, it doesn't matter. Your price will get filled somehow. Basically at like, cause there's enough liquidity always. But with NFTs, there's only like 10,000 or some of them are less. So if there's 10,000 and only 300 of them are listed or whatever, like that aren't that many people that are trying to sell, or maybe there's, I don't know how many buyers always, but like, I guess my point is that like, if all of a sudden the hype is gone of the community, like you won't be able to sell until you get to way, way, way lower than what you wanted to sell at. So like, that's why whenever like you see Azuki is like moving, like I have an Azuki that had since like 5 Ethereum, and I want it, but it's not like a floor one. So I can't just list it at floor and it'll sell like instantly, because then I'm kind of losing value. But also like I would like to sell it. We were very close to selling it. Me and my friend, we were very close, but like but like it took like a while. You're talking to someone or whatever, and then the run kind of ended. Like there was literally a 2-day span where Azuki floor went from like 18 to like 33 or something, and now it's at maybe 23, 24. But like you have to catch the wave, and you have to be okay with sometimes not getting the top, because like maybe occasionally you'll feel good and it'll be an ego boost when you sell something at like the actual like top of whatever the market is or the hype cycle is. But once that hype is gone, like, yeah, Azuki is a good enough project that if I really want to list it right now, I could probably list it like maybe a little above floor and someone would buy it. But once it's gone, especially with the middle tier projects or something, like it becomes like you might have to wait a few months or just sell it for a price you really don't want to, possibly at a loss. And that's kind of why like liquidity is just vital. But sometimes I don't listen to myself.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I have been very, very careful with getting into NFTs, because I need the like liquidity most of the time, because like I say, there are people that I pay in ETH. There are other things, a lot of, even with our, obviously there's anything you do with the blockchain, you're paying gas fees, there's all that stuff. So it's like quite scary for me to kind of know that I have that NFT sitting there, but if I need the money, I may not be able to get the money out right away. So I do think that definitely something you need to do with money that you definitely don't need. You definitely for sure that you're not going to need that money. And, and then like give yourself a budget and say like, I'm going to play with this. It's a little bit like, I'd say there are similarities to investing in real estate, but also there's similarities to investing in startups, because, definitely with startups, that, you're investing in a number of different startups, and then you like if you're angel investing, and you need to sit back for about usually 5 years, actually, at least in this case, it's about 9 months, right? And you're sitting like at least for about 5 years for that startup to build, and then then like they sell or they IPO, whatever, and then you get your your return. Whereas with NFTs, there is always that possibility of putting it back on and kind of like a little bit around the floor price or whatever, but then you may be losing something that's quite rare. Yeah, so it's definitely a difficult mental thing to get your head around, and to be okay with it. The other thing is you mentioned about the the price going up, and like because in crypto I understand it, right? And in crypto I'm like I get it, like the technical analysis, all that stuff. How does that apply to because in crypto you have the macro and then you have the technical analysis? Is it a similar kind of thing in because although I am fairly familiar with NFTs and I have some, but I haven't really traded in a similar. I have done trading in crypto, but I haven't traded in NFTs. Any NFTs that I buy are usually because I want access to that community. So how do you compare it?
I mean, I think it's like macro, I'd say, is a little more nuanced yet again, because like when Ethereum and Bitcoin go down, you look at like the charts and it's like all red, like there's very few that are in the green, like very few. When the entire market goes down, and like, or when the big players go down, so does most of the ones below it. But with NFTs, it's kind of it will follow that track, but it really kind of depends on where a project is. Sometimes like they really end up like like buy the news or sell the news like buy
buy the rumor, sell the news.
Yeah. I think that like isn't necessarily the case in NFTs here, because there's so many people that are not very experienced with trading, and they just it's like, I think Bored Ape, back when I started, it was just like a lot of like NFT OGs, crypto guys who are just like, this is happening, I need to get in. And a lot of people have sold now. And there's a lot of rich, like, wealthy people who maybe literally own yachts, who are just like, I need NFTs or I need this because it's like a status symbol or something. And it's like, those people don't necessarily care or have time to even think about the market. They're just like, oh, there's an announcement. Cool. I need to buy because like of the announcement before, like, I can't buy anymore. So the market isn't efficient in that way, like that, crypto is, or tokens are as much. But I don't mind. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because like, and also every project is at different points. Like sometimes, like if something's minting, it will just like, it has its own like little like flurry of stuff going on. So there could be a bunch of mints when on a down day in the market, and those are up because like people are like really into it or whatever. I'd say that still, like, yes, okay, obviously like it's a little more specific, but if all of a sudden the market takes a hit, like it kind of like people will start looking for some liquidity and stuff, trying to sell. And but man, it's interesting because like literally like ApeCoin or something, or like news really can just get the market
going
blurry. Like when Azuki dropped those beans a couple weeks ago or whatever, where all of a sudden here's like free 8 ETH, and it's like, we don't know what they do yet, but now like the market is like, I need an Azuki. And then from there it kind of does like trickle down, whereas like you buy it, if Bored Ape has a thing, if Azuki has a thing, if CloneX or Punks or whatever, cool. And then like at some point, like the lower like 3 to 5 ETH like floors may like get some buys, and then from there it'll trickle down a little bit. But you definitely need new people coming in to keep that liquidity going. Eventually we just start trading with ourselves.
Yeah. So, and with every new collection that releases, new people come into the market because they bring their, like, for example, there are quite a lot of people who are getting on our whitelist that they are creating their MetaMask wallet for the first time, for example, So with every new project, so do you see a value for having many more projects, or do you generally think that like it's already saturated?
Do I see a value for like more projects coming in, or just in general?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
because to get more people in, you need more projects in, but then you get more projects in, there's more saturation.
Yeah, but like you see, what'd you say? It was 1 million people that were on OpenSea right now or something?
No, a million people have any kind of NFTs.
Sure. There's only 10,000 Bored Apes. There's only 10,000, 20,000 CloneXs and stuff. And yeah, you can own each one, maybe there's overlap, but these are all communities, and everyone wants to find their own community. So like, that's not that many when there's 1 million people, and like that are that own an NFT. Like 10,000 is 1% of that.
Yeah.
So like, there's plenty of NFTs to go around. It's just a matter of it's kind of just like a, startup world.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
How are you going to succeed over this person or this company or whatever?
Yeah.
So yeah, like Moonbirds or whatever, apparently they did a great job with the proof, and the floor is wild. It's like 90 ETH or something.
Yes.
So they have a community and hype and team already that's ready to create, there's always going to be new ones that come out with, or new technology within NFTs. I got in one called Frenzies a couple of weeks ago. Actually, the reveal's tomorrow, but it's basically like you build the traits that you want and then you mint it, and then it'll like, that's the collection. And then those traits kind of like, if someone like picks those a bunch, then they leave and they're gone, and those are like the rare traits or whatever. So it was kind of fun. It was different.
So you need to create, basically we all need to become innovators in this space, and like, so do you have any plans of doing anything yourself? Because a lot of people start out and then they go out and do their own thing.
I mean, I helped a couple projects out. Mech Arcade I was on for a bit, and still like, helping them, and then Lion Share Poker as well. But it's like I can only like, it just became, it sucks because like when you're like, all right, I want to start this project, cool, you start this project, and then 6 months later it becomes way more ferocious of a like, if you had launched the day you decided to start the project, you would have minted out. But it's like, so you have to be very fluid with all that stuff. And I think am yet to like start my own project, simply because it's kind of daunting. And I don't like, maybe one day it would be fun. But I think if I started it, it would probably not have much of a, like I wouldn't really want, like, it would just be like a fun thing, like, hey, if you want it, like, you'll gain access or whatever. Here's like a couple thousand of like this like koala, I don't know, whatever it is. But like, it wouldn't, and then maybe we could figure out stuff to do within the community once that's there. But like, it's just like, if you're starting like today, like, you need to be planning for 2024 launch or late 2023. I don't even know, like, and have like a legitimate team, and come up with like a really good idea and this and that. Like, it's just, it doesn't feel like something I really want to do at this point. But I did start a management company actually recently, helping like, it's very new, but and I'm just going to be helping artists and anyone who kind of just needs some help in the space. And like, it's a little bit of onboarding and consulting, but also like helping, like I said earlier, people who have excelled in other avenues, like in art or whatever, but who don't really grasp NFTs or don't have like their network to help them. And I can like help them and get them kind of just like completely ready to go with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think
that's kind of,
that is so important, like, educating and helping other people who, because I think like it's one of those things that's like, even if you're 10 minutes earlier, you're ahead of people because of the exponential growth of technology, because of the exponential growth of this innovation that is happening. It's like, even if you're 10 minutes earlier than other people, you're ahead.
Yeah. So I did just want to like kind of say that that's what I kind of arrived at. Like, I unintentionally have been doing this the past year, because if I like something and I'm passionate about it, I won't shut up about it. Like Formula One, like, I don't stop talking about it. NFTs, the past year, I probably helped like 15 to 20 people understand it.
Yes.
Or if, and it got to the point where I was like, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this every single time I go out. It gets a little fatiguing, but I unintentionally started having a really good like elevator pitch on why you need NFTs.
Oh, can you please give that to our audience? Because I want them to hear. Of course, you're coming onto the platform. We have a session on the 5th of May, and we are going to be talking specifically about how to become a successful collector. But can you, for people listening to this, and I was thinking, like, with all these terms that we are throwing around with like Bored Apes and CloneX and things like that, a lot of people are going to be listening to the podcast that they are not going to know what we're talking about. So So let's, can we give people listening to this podcast, because actually our community started out as more of a broader, thinking about technology and finance in the beginning, and then we kind of narrowed down on this area, in this area, because I've been super passionate about it, and I think this is timely now, and we want to really educate people. But do you, every day I have this challenge of having to explain to people what is crypto, what is NFTs, why are these things important, what does it matter, why does it matter? Because also it plays into everything else that is happening, like in the metaverse. Then we have the DAOs, all these different things that are coming up. So yeah, so tell me, like, if you what's the elevator pitch for NFTs?
So I guess I would say that NFTs, like I said earlier, are a multi-industry disruptor, because it's not, everyone thinks NFTs are the art and it's like the JPEG. No, it is the technology behind it. It's just on the blockchain, which is immutable, which basically means, like, think of you having like a stone like tablet, like if you just, back in the day, if you chiseled that on there, like you can't go back unless you like broke it. So it's on there forever. But that actually provides a lot of legitimacy for a lot of things like art, like the amount of fraudsters that create like fake art in the real world. That's really annoying. So art, then music with the record labels. Now you have control, and it kind of like the creator and the collector are a little more in unison now, because and this is also another thing is the royalties. So the fact that you can get, when I heard the term in perpetuity, I was like, I remember that. I've heard that from like music stuff. Like that means forever. So if I buy your NFT for $100, let's say the marketplace gets like 2% or whatever, and then you get like 98% of that. You're like, sweet, made $98. Cool. It's a good start. Then I list it for $1,000, and someone else is like, I want that NFT. That NFT is sweet. They buy it from me, and I get like most of it. But then you have like a royalty percentage that you baked in. Let's say it's 5%. So now you just made $50 from a secondary transaction. And think about what that would look like in real life. Like it's impossible. Like, oh, you want this Picasso for a couple $1 million? Cool. Well, I'm gonna buy it. Like you buy it for that, and then you sell it for 20, and then like maybe not Picasso, but like let's say Banksy or something. Like him getting royalties, that's incredible. He deserves it. The artist deserves it, and the collector deserves them too for just being savvy and listing at a price that people bought it at. So not only is that awesome, but then you can do ticketing, which, like, think about for Coachella, you have 40,000 tickets. There's scammers all the time that reprint stuff and are able to duplicate it really well with whatever printers. But now you just have an NFT for those 40,000 guests. Like, okay, if they're screwing up, it's because they went to the wrong, it was user error completely, and those 40,000 people, like now they can be airdropped like posters and stuff to their address. So it's just, ticketing is going to be so helpful because there's so much secondary for scams and stuff, and all these marketplaces, like at least they're fine, but the fees are so huge. It's like, I bought a ticket yesterday and the fee was 15%, which is wild. So, and then also we're not even at gaming yet.
Of course.
Gaming, it's just
it's the pinnacle of
by far. Yeah. I mean, like the fact that you'll be able to, like, I don't know if you're a gamer at all, but like, let's say like FIFA. So let's say with FIFA, every year you get these cards that are like Messi or Ronaldo or whatever, and you try to like, you try to make these teams, you spend all this money on these cards, and then the next year those cards are gone. You have to start from scratch. You can't port them from year to year. But like all the money is just going to EA Sports, but if you were able to make it NFTs, then now that has use and you can sell that on secondary markets pretty easily. Also, if you own it, maybe you get some access, which is another thing, like the access to all these things, the fact that I can go to parties because I own an NFT, the fact that I went to a burger place in Long Beach, California on Sunday and because I own a Bored Ape, I got a free burger and fries.
Nice.
Like silly stuff like that. Like obviously you can bake an access everywhere, but the community that it builds is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely very, very interesting. I'm hoping that people listening to this, at the very least, take the time to look into it more, because, I think we all started out with not understanding it. And then once you get it, you start to kind of like, okay, the penny drops and then you're like, I am late to the party.
Yeah.
That's what basically happens. Anyway, well, thank you so much, Adam. This has been very interesting. I could talk to you forever about these things. There's so much to share, to explore.
We all can.
And yeah, exactly. And we've got you back on the 5th of May. So we will talk more on the platform in like more kind of nuanced, like how can people actually start their journey. So yeah, thank you so much for that. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Adam Levy. He's also a contributor to the FemPeak platform, and you should definitely join and tune into his educational content. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Arian Show.